Hey folks, it's Brian here. RPG Day 2018, day number 24. Which RPG do you feel deserves greater recognition? And for me, it's got to be the Fantasy Trip, which coincidentally had a Kickstarter this past month, and they were looking at $20,000 to do the legacy set deal. And as of today, they broke 314,000. This is what, 1,500% what they wanted to do. So they got tons of stretch goals they picked up. The Fantasy Trip is a very clean, very simple system. It was the second game my brother taught me. He taught me AD&D. One summer is like the next summer was the Fantasy Trip. Now it started out pretty much as a board combat game, and then a board combat. Melee was board combat, and Wizard, which is board combat with magic. And then they had advanced versions of those, and the actual role-playing system itself in the Labyrinth, which I understand from that eventually came GURPS. I've got some GURPS books, but just for the scenario setting kind of stuff. Never actually looked into the system itself. It was a point buy thing, and that's not my deal. But that would be it. The Fantasy Trip. Very clean. That's where I get that 3d6 thing from. And I've probably mentioned a couple other of my videos about how nearly all of the combat house rules that me and my friends have for all our different systems all came from the Fantasy Trip. Things just made sense, simple, and they build upon each other. The one thing, and my buddy Ed will get a kick out of this, one thing I have to modify is the armor system. Because I'm always fixing my armor tables. But it seemed to me that the armor didn't really protect enough against the weapons that normal fighters would be fighting with and against. So I've made some modifications there, shields as well. In fact, I've even gone through and I've tweaked the weapon damage as well. The way it's based out is your strength allows you to wield certain weapons. And those weapons max out their damage at what your strength is, at least for swords. Baseline sword. So a short sword takes strength 11, does 2d6 minus 1. This system also uses only d6s. It's another thing I messed up because I changed, throw in d8s and d12s and that kind of stuff as well. But they have, pardon me, basic broadsword, 12 strength, does 2d6 damage, that kind of thing. The hand and half sword takes a 13 strength and does 2d6 plus 1. Let's use it two-handed, which gives us 3d6 minus 1, which comes out to strength and a half. So I would do weird stuff like I balanced that out for swords using the polyhedrals, and then I would modify that for axes. So an axe would have a higher minimum, lower maximum, same average. So a d8 would change to a d6 plus 1 kind of thing as we went along. And then maces were 2 steps down, higher minimum, lower maximum, and then hammers, I think, were the last one. But then you run into weird things with like spears and stuff, and that got kind of convoluted. So I would actually have weapons do a little bit of different damage. I would increase the armor protection, because if you got a guy in chain with a broadsword, chainmail stops, chain and shield would stop 4 points. Broadsword still doing 2d6. That's 3 points every round on average. Excuse me. So 4 rounds, you're dead. It doesn't really sound too bad, does it? Maybe. 20/20 hindsight. Anyway, that's my vote for today. An RPG that deserves greater recognition. Steve Jackson Games, The Fantasy Trip. Sometimes known as In the Labyrinth. What are yours? Happy gaming.